Okay, well, welcome everybody. Uh, it is January 16th, 2023, our first meeting of the new year. Happy to see you all. We all know each other, so I'm not sure that we need to do a go around in introductions, particularly. If that's all right with you, my inclination is just to say, rock and roll, Mona, take it away. You want me to read your introduction and bio? I'll pull that up. Did
Okay.
everybody read Mona's bio?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I should do that, just to make sure that it's on the recording. Mona, would you like to introduce yourself while I'm digging up your bio?
Okay. Okay, great. Oh, this is the start of 2023. I am so excited to be here and be able to be presenting at the Greater Sarasota Coaches Alliance. So I've been coming around for a couple of years, and I've had a chance to meet you and get to know it. I have to say, I'm really inspired by all of you. The professionalism that you all bring, it has been wonderfully helpful and uplifting to me. And I really learned so very much. So I just wanted to say thank you. Feels like a very privileged moment for me to have this wonderful opportunity to start 2023 off and get you moving.
Okay, shall I introduce you now?
Sure.
Formally? So, Mona, our beloved Mona Baker, is a former professional ballet dancer. She's been helping clients to move pain-free as a practitioner for over 35 years. She's the founder of the Actionomics movement method, and it's been awarded 2 patents so far. As a former dancer with the American Ballet Theater, who experienced a career-ending injury, she truly understands the challenges dancers and athletes experience in maintaining their needed career wellness. And I think she's going to apply some of her wisdom and knowledge for us today, whether we're athletes or dancers or coaches. She's a certified movement analyst studying movement, a certified teacher of Laban notation, which is a fascinating way of notating movement, a registered somatic movement therapist, registered somatic movement educator, and a registered dance educator. She's creator of Actionomics, a language moving through action. She's very excited about sharing Actionomics' cutting-edge mind and body conversations and bringing freedom of movement to dance professionals, athletes, and now entrepreneurs. Now that we have formally introduced you, Mona, please take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Leslie. And thank you for the invite. Okay, so today's presentation titled Peak Your Peak Performance. That's peak, kind of use an image to discover your peak performance. So it's for pain-free moving. It's learning about that. And I thought it was a really wonderful way to introduce you to Actionomics. But Actionomics, that's only one benefit. Actionomics has many, many benefits, but it's the most important one, I think, for all of you, because there is a statistic now that 63% of online entrepreneurs or people just working online are experiencing chronic issues with their neck, their shoulders, and their low back. That's a huge amount. And of course, we're sitting all the time. And so that is a predetermined set reason for, of course, having the pain issues, because the body's meant to move. But actually, there's another one idea that you may not even be aware of. So in the virtual world, we're all having a conversation with each other, and we're two-dimensional. The image that we are seeing is two-dimensional, but our bodies are three-dimensional. So our brain and our mind and our bodies learning, and it's having information. It's like an imposter reflection. So we're learning less and less how to engage with our body. And right now, as I'm observing people as they move, as a movement analyst, we look at it from their behaviors. There are not many people that have a very powerful and engaging connection with their mind and body. They're really separate. And then when it starts to hurt, what do? You get really angry. And that makes it hurt even more. And you don't realize it's something that you're not doing well. And the body is just trying to let you know, please listen to me. It's how it speaks to us. So today's goal is to your peak performance is to release one of these joints. Is anybody having an issue that they'd like to work with their neck, their shoulders, or your low back, or just pull one out to start with? Have you ever had an issue with your neck or your low back or your shoulders? Anybody? Right. Right. If you're out there doing things, you usually do. Okay. So, and to release it, and actually to have this mind and body engagement, to have a sense and experience of moving, even if it doesn't hurt, but maybe to move in a released way, to have a sense that gravity is lifting us up, because that is how we're supposed to move. So, as I said, Actionomics is a language, and so it has a specific conversation between the mind and the body. It is not fitness, but it is wellness. It is not exercise, it's movement. And it does not deal directly with the muscles. It works with the joints. So today I'd like to start, because I think it's a really easy one to start, to give the example with the problem that people have with their necks, because it's a critical problem, because the neck leads to the head, and the head, being the heaviest body part, if it's not engaged with gravity, it functions as a compressive force. And then that's when the joints begin to really hurt. So the conversation that I'm going to share with you of how to peak for your peak performance today is, it's kind of like networking. So, when you go to a networking event, you're meeting somebody first, and then you kind of talk a little bit and you're greeting one another, and then you're seeking a little bit to know even more about one another. And then suddenly you begin to pick some images of, is this a good fit, or what can I do to help them? Just kind of running around in your mind. And then you decide, oh, this is, and then you tweak. It's like you plan, well, let's go for coffee, and you carry it on. So there is this kind of sequence in the trajectory of networking. So I like to use that same kind of sequence to build that engagement with your joints. So in Actionomics, we work with two different kinds of joints. We work with the hinge joint that opens and closes like that, and we work with a ball and socket joint that moves the ball in the socket. So I'm going to be working to release the neck. And so I need to go to the joint that is so effective about what happens to the neck. And it happens to be a joint just with the head, where the head fits right on the top of the spine. So what kind of joint do you think this joint is in terms of its structure? Is it a ball and socket, or is it a hinge joint? What is it? Just want to put it in the chat, or yes, I see Stephanie. So what is it? You can.
I think it's a ball and socket.
Okay, you are correct. So the base of the skull is like a cup, and I'd like to have you do this with your hand, because we begin to train the mind and the body to engage the joints from different levels. So this is a cup, and then you fist your hand, and it's like a ball. Okay, So we have a ball that can move this way. So if you can do that, right? And we have a socket that can move this way. Okay. Or we, if it's in the body, in another place. But for the head, this is the base of the skull, and this is the top of your spine. So the head is going to be turning around. So this is the function where we begin to greet the joint, its function. So if you can take your hand and kind of move it around just like this, your body begins to learn that the cup is, the socket is moving around. It's really important to get it into your body. It's about movement. Okay, all right. So I said where it was anatomically. Where do you think that is on your body? Where, can you point with your fingers? Where is this critical ball in socket joint? And I'd like to have everybody try because it's really important, because that tells you, does your brain know where it is? And if the joint, yes, Deb knows. Right. She just couldn't sit down. So, yes, it is located. It's a functional location. It is a little lower, but I find it works a little better with gravity to get the joint released in some joints, not all the joints that I work with, but this one. If you take your third finger, it is like the axis of your skeleton, and you're going to put it just above your ear, right here, and you're going to, right, that's where it's located, right, that's where it's located, okay? Now, that's fine that you know where it is, but you need to be able to peek the image, because at this point, your brain has not learned that it's a ball and socket structure because it's not being used and just doesn't know it. So we use images in Actionomics, and I use models. So this is the ball, and this is the socket. And most joints, when they get tight, the socket gets really like that, and then it rubs and rubs, and that deteriorates. So we want to imagine that the socket is, they're separate, a little bit up, and it is rotating side to side. It's moving around. This is the image I want you to see in your mind, right? And you are going to place it right between here, your fingers. So now, your third finger. Now, I would like you to image that, and I want you to use your fingers to move your head. You not to turn it yourself. Your fingers are turning your head. Right, right. So Nina, your whole torso is moving, not the head, with your fingers. And sometimes when our jaw is tight, it pulls it tight so it doesn't move. We want it to really be loose. Right. It's a really different kind of thinking because we're so used to moving our head ourselves. Joan, let me see how you're doing. Okay, good, good, good. And right, Marilyn, and Deb knows that. Just move it with your fingers. That's better. That's better. Right, Nina. Now that feels a little different than what you were moving before, right? Yes, good, good. All right. Let me see you, Leslie. Are your fingers up over your ears like that? Okay, it's your hair. Okay. Let me see it moving from side to side with your fingers. Good. All right. Okay, so now as you're doing that, you can feel that it begins to glide. Right. That's how your head is supposed to be moving all of the time. Okay, so now just drop your fingers. That you peaked it. We're moving it here. And now we're going to let it go. And we're going to let the head just rotate from side to side, carrying on that gliding moving from side to side. Right, right. Okay, okay. Let's see how you're doing, Joan. Moving from side to side. Right, right, right. Good. Oh, Nina. Wow, that's different. Great. Marilyn, yes, your head can go even more. And the back of the head can even begin to lead a little bit more. And it will change the alignment, because most of us have lost that C curve in the neck, which we need to have the spinal spring. Right. Okay. Good. So that feels like it's gliding a little bit more than it was before. And you're not moving your neck, you're moving your head. Most of the time we watch people twisting their neck. And most of the time we do that because we learned how to do that watching the people when we were learning movement, when we were just in our crib. And what happens is the neck and the spine is never supposed to twist. It turns as a result of the joints, the ball and socket joints moving. But we don't, when you go to the chiropractor, they twist it and they twist it, but they don't, that's for them to do in a very calculated way. But we have twisted it, which is why you have to go to the chiropractor, because for him to take that, or her to take that, to unravel that. Okay, so now, so the head side free. Let's go up and down this way. Again, you're going to feel the fingers, get it to move, get it to release, because they're new patterns. Relax the jaw. Marilyn, let a little more of your fingers do the moving of the head. And Joan, you can relax the jaw just a little bit more, the lower jaw, and it will free that up a little bit. Okay, all right. So now, so you take that image, and this time it's going to be moving like this. So you put this image in and see if you can get it to go like that. So it's all right. Now, as you're moving it, does it get heavier and then lighter and then heavier? See if you can find that feedback. That's a really important one. Can you find that? Is it heavier when it goes to the back? No. Lighter when it goes up? And then forward gets heavier? And you have, anybody have any idea what that is? Why is it heavier and lighter? What makes the difference? Right. So it's a really important sensory awareness to have. And when we are just in our developmental phase and we have the really,
I missed the answer. I missed the answer.
Oh, gravity.
I thought that's what I thought that's what I would have said, but I wasn't sure. Hey, while I have you, can you talk? Are you going to talk some more about the C curve in your neck?
I can. I will.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, so the gravity, when you're a baby and if your head is really big and proportion to the rest of the body, and it's a beautiful developmental process as you go through the crawling and everything, it's engaging and doing all of this, and it is picking up cues from gravity. It is highly sensitive. It is used when a child is learning to walk and everything. It's just an amazing thing. And then suddenly we were up trotting around for a while and we lose our sensory awareness of gravity. And then we're not moving lightly. Babies know they walk on their toes, they're lifting up, they're buoyant because they love that sensory experience of the lightness. They play with gravity, and that feeds their whole developmental process. So in Actionomics, we invite that lightness into the movement. So when we change position, we're following the gravity's direction to do that. Okay. So Deb has asked me to speak about the C curve. So, so the spine, when you look at it, face on, it's this rod. And most people see the skeleton and look at it as a rod. When I was dancing, the ballet dancer, we used the verticality where the spine was considered a rod, but it is not. It is this amazing double S curvilinear pattern, and it is like a spring. And the C curve in the neck is really critical. So the C curve is right here. You have 7 vertebrae, and it's this direction. My nose is here. I want to have the C curve here. And when you go to the chiropractor and they say you have your neck is straight or you have a reverse curve, you've lost that, and it's a critical problem for a lot of neck issues because the vertebrae in your spine are tapered in the direction to create the curvilinear patterns. They're fatter on the outside of the neck. They're wider here and tapered here, and they're wider. Let's see, here, wrong way. They're wider here, and then they're tapered here, and then they're wider here, and then they're tapered here, and so that's what creates this curve. But so if your neck is straight or you're in the reverse curve, the nerves that go through the spinal, your neck, 7 vertebrae, they pinch, and you have headaches. You have so many problems. You even have, if you have pinched nerves in the neck, it goes all the way down to carpal tunnel syndrome, and that's most of what that is. Yes, in the neck. Although they repair it here, but it starts in the neck. So this neck is a C curve, and so when you're moving your head, now that you can move your head and you can feel the weight of the gravity pulling, you can feel that the neck of the C curve is moving. Why don't you kind of move your head back and forward and see if you can get that C curve to move, because we want to have a lot of flexibility. Good, Marilyn. Good. And so the other factor is when I'm here, what helps also to facilitate that C curve is the angle of my head. So if the angle's like this, then I'm going to ultimately lose that C curve. But if I have the angle a little up with my nose up, then I'm going to invite the forces as I interact with gravity to actually invite to maintain that C curve. So moving the head up and releasing it and moving, and you just notice when I'm talking, I'm moving. I'm moving all the time. Right? So it actually picks me up. I'm sitting right straight and everything, and I mean, I'm aligned, and that's why I'm saying not straight. So, and I have energy. I'm picking up energy from my gravity. So I would like to just take a moment and just go around and see if you can speak and move your head with this new way, because it's very energizing. If you're going to be online hours and hours, moving your head, it's engaging, but it's not something we normally do. And so would you be willing to try and just say whatever? Are you having fun? That's all we need to say. You having fun today? Anyway, can I just go around the screen as I'm seeing and ask you? See if you can find that moving your head.
Well, I'll go. I think I often move my head when I talk to people because I find myself nodding and gesturing and doing all kinds of things. So I seldom sit very statically when I'm speaking. So I move a lot,
So may I say something? If you were to move it up this way a little bit more, then you're going to invite the C curve in your neck, because you were turning your head like this, which is instead of up. that a little bit. I mean, you can turn it from the side, but just have your chin up a little bit, and then you'll have it's a little bit more energetically viable, and the head will be
I
soft.
think I'd have to get comfortable with it because that looks, to me, would look a little bit odd to my clients if I'm talking like
Okay.
this.
But even if you're just, but even if you're just moving, that's what I'm asking.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's what I'm
Okay.
wanting you to do. It's not a held position.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
right, just like that.
All right. I got it. Okay.
Okay, and eat just a little bit more elaborate, right? Yeah,
Got
yeah,
it. Thanks.
because you're even more with your hand. Yes, right. Yeah, right. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Stephanie, since you're in my screen, next.
Sorry, you're asking again.
I'm asking you to speak, moving your head so that,
All right,
right.
I can do that. And yeah, I agree with Leslie that when I'm talking with somebody, I'm nodding my head to try and make sure that they understand that I'm hearing them, and to create that. But I probably don't always move my head enough.
Right. So as I said, the image is picking it up. The other thing is picking it up. If you get them lighter, that's what you're doing. You're indirectly telling them, gravity, lift it up, lighten your mood. That's what you're doing. Right. Okay. All right, Marilyn, you're next on my screen.
It just feels a little weird to keep moving like that. I move in other ways, but I feel as though when I'm with people, they're going to wonder, what is she doing? But she'll try to just be energized by moving her neck. And I'd rather move my body.
Right. But I'm just talking about your head. Yeah, it's your head.
Yeah, the head.
Right. Right.
Yeah, the head, it's going to look a little strange. I mean, I'm looking at myself and I'm going, oh, that looks kind of weird.
Right. But it's going to energize you. And your clients maybe will begin to pick that up.
Hey, Mona, if I have any more energy, I'm in trouble.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Okay. Okay. Nina, how are you doing with that?
Yeah, and that's really interesting, Mona. Thanks for reminding us to move. I mean, what happens to me, I get stuck on my computer for like long periods of time and literally don't move. I mean, I'm just like stuck and I'm focused and, I'm just sitting like this. And I think that would just once in a while, just even while I'm working, just to move, I think that might really help keep things a little bit looser. Because I was one time grading an assignment for like hours and I had to look up to another monitor. I twisted my head. I couldn't move my head for days. I was in so much pain. It was really, really crazy. And also what I noticed when you look at people on TV, like newscasters or so, they just sit completely still. Have you ever noticed? They don't move one bit. I guess they're coached to do that, but I think it would actually look more interesting if they did move a little bit. I think so. But yeah, I'm going to try to move a little bit more when I meet with my students, see what they say.
And you just can peek that image a little bit and just, it will automatically turn on because that's the power of the image teaching the brain to move. Good. Great. Well, thank you. And Joan, how are you doing?
Well, if I'm not on a Zoom or I'm not with a client, on FaceTime, I'm talking. I talk a lot on the phone and I have a lot of clients that is just phone. So I move my head and my body quite a bit when I'm sitting. And when I'm not talking, I sit at my desk and I look out because I have a bird feeder and I've got hundreds of cardinals that are coming. So I'm turning my body and my head all the time when I'm sitting at my desk watching them. So I know I move my head quite a bit. I don't know how much up and down, but I'm turning and moving. But I'll concentrate on moving it a little bit more up and down. But when I'm talking to people, I'm pretty much moving my head. So I think I do quite a bit.
Okay, good. All right. So when you are turning to look at the cardinals, if you lead with turning your head rather than turning your torso.
Right.
So just remember that, and then the head will lead and then it can take it around. It's really important what joint initiates the body part sequencing.
Right.
So if you could think of that, that would be
Good.
But, okay, great. I think that's wonderful to hear about your cardinals. That's neat. Okay, Deb.
So I fidget a lot when I'm on the Zoom call, and it annoys me personally. And I've been jealous of people who can sit there in a video conference and not move. So now I'm not jealous of them anymore. The other thing I notice myself doing is when I talk to somebody, I do this. I talk I lean to one side, more this side than this side. But so I don't know what's up with that, but I'm always trying to straighten that out. So, and I like to touch I'm real fidgety.
Good. All right.
Oh, and
Sometimes,
they say every 30 minutes, Nina, you should get up. Every 30 minutes. So I know it's hard when you really are trying to focus on grading 100 papers or whatever. But you should have a timer and get up, walk into the other room.
I know. I'm aware of that. The problems. Do you ever find yourself really thinking and concentrating really deeply?
It's called hyperfocus for some of us. I'm right there with you.
If I get up and then I come back, it's like I'm pulled out of that deep, focus, and it's wasting my time. And I'm much just more efficient, just getting it all done at once. But it's bad for my body. I know that. It's just trade-off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a good point. On one hand, yes, the transition to getting up from our desk and thinking about something else and then coming back and then having to get back into that, I definitely understand. But there is a lot of evidence for those of us who fall into hyperfocus a lot that using like a Pomodoro timer of 20 to 25 minutes and then going away for 5 and then coming back, it actually gets your brain to start making more connections. It kind of freshens it up. And even though there are definitely times that hyperfocus is really good to help us solve one particular problem, sometimes getting a fresh perspective will bring in something else. So in terms of grading papers, I definitely don't think that you want to get too off track with that. But there are definitely positives of getting out of that hyperfocus.
Yeah. And I'm thinking more like when I do research, and I'm writing myself, you have that train of thought.
Yeah.
And then being pulled out of it, then you lost that. You just lost that train of thought.
I do respect that. I definitely understand that. Is there a way that you can still like take something with you to continue to write as you get a movement activity, a movement break, not necessarily a brain break, just a body break?
To write?
Or do you need to stay and type?
Yeah, I just do it all typing. It would actually be so time consuming to write it by hand and then go back and then typing in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried a standing desk, but it's funny because I can't focus when I stand. I can't focus as well when I stand. It's a really strange thing. Yeah, I don't know why. And then I sit down and go, oh, now I can really focus, And then I stand and I go, oh God, I'm uncomfortable. It's just something. There's some sort of discomfort when I stand. It takes energy, and it takes the energy away from my brain. It's weird.
So I think you could carry on that track better if you make the transition from sitting to standing with the head leading, rather than people get out of chairs. People get out of chairs like this, whereas you get out of chairs like this, where the head is leading. And then there's some continuity, and I'm moving into an uplifted engagement. So the idea that you are having, you've been working on, that thread, you can continue with that thread because you're lifting that idea up rather than breaking the connection by compressing, as the people get up like that instead. It's a different kind of weight. It's actually a level change weight shift that goes forward, and the other stuff do all the us, but I guess we're here. So you need to come, you need to come with the head leading, and your torso comes forward, and then you come forward up. It is a mini squat, and the body is beautifully designed for that. So that's right. Right. And your whole spine elongates, because when you're sitting and you're concentrated and contracted, everything is getting tight. You just have released it with making that level change weight shift. So I think you'll be able to carry on that thread of thought, Nina, that you were so concerned about leaving, by taking a break and to be healthy. That makes sense? Good. Because
Have you ever heard of the Alexander technique?
I'm sorry?
The Alexander technique?
Yes.
It's actually comes from dancing, and they teach that as well. Somebody, a teacher, an Alexander technique teacher, told me to do the same thing, to lead with the head.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's another joint I haven't taught you about that also needs to be connected, but you came forward and you lifted yourself up, and that was, most people aren't willing to tilt their torso forward, and because they don't realize sitting and standing is a mini squat. Okay. All right. Okay. So one other joint. You ready? Or have you had enough, or what? You just tell me where you'd like to go. I'm here. What would you like? Want to work on the low back? Anybody have low back issues? Okay. All right. Okay. So, well, why do you think you have low back issues? What joints do you think might be involved with that?
Hips.
Well, that's because you know.
Oh, sorry. I'm not like looking at my cheat notes.
Right. Right. It is. Right. Your hip joints. Because the hip joints are, there's a iliopsoas muscle. It's a really critical muscle. It attaches to the top of your femur, which is your hip joint, and then it goes all the way up through your pelvis and up to your T12, just so it takes all of the lumbar. And when you have spasms and issues with your lumbar area, it's because that hip joints aren't being used correctly, and so that iliopsoas muscle is in contraction. And so they have so many hip replacements happening now that are really just from people poorly sitting and poorly moving. And when they say it's bone on bone, that you can't repair it, well, you have to change the pattern of how you're moving, how you're articulating those joints. And when you change that, you get circulation back into them, and they will restore, maybe not fully, but enough. You shouldn't need to have a hip replacement. It's a big, major undertaking. Okay, so now the big one is that we know know what kind of joint it is. What's its structure? How are we going to meet this joint? What do you think it is? Any ideas? Because it's really important. You're discovering now the joint won't articulate if you don't know what it is and what its structure is. Any idea? What is your hip joint? Between a ball and a socket, or a hinge? Any ideas? You can write it in the chat. Well,
I believe it's a ball and socket.
it is a ball and socket, right? Okay, so and so we know that it rotates, so we know it's this, but this time it's a little different because we have the socket fitting in the ball fitting in the socket. The ball is at the top of the femur, and this the socket is in the pelvis area. And so it moves. The socket can move around it, but the torso is moving. But mostly it's the ball rotating in the socket. Okay. All right. So now we've got to find the location. And this is a big one too. So I'm going to ask you to stand, and so that I can see where you think your hip joints might be. And then I will stand. I'm wearing a garment. is right. Okay. So I need to see your pelvis area a little bit because we're doing that. Right. Good. And Deb came in her. Right. Good. So, Joan, can you stand? We got to find our hip joints. And you get both you and Leslie are need to move back a little bit further. See how far back Deb is? If you can move back so you can see Deb, right? That's as far back as we need.
That's as far as I can go.
That's fine. Okay. Now, where do you think this ball for the ball and socket hip joint is located in your hip joints? Okay. And Deb, don't show them. Stephanie, can you stand up so we're finding and locating, we're seeking where our hip joints are. And see if you can move your chair back a little bit, like to have a little bit more. So we can see.
Clearly, you don't know how dirty my office is. Messy my office.
I'm not noticing. I'm looking for hip joints. Okay. All right. That's fine. I can see. All right. So where do you think they are? It's really important because you're finding out if your brain knows where your hip joints are. Can you point to them? Except Deb. Okay. Okay. All right. So Leslie and Marilyn, and I didn't see, okay. Leslie and Marilyn are on the greater trochanter. That's not the hip joint, it is the top of the femur. It's an important bony landmark, and we're going to use that to help find the hip joint. And Joe, I think you're way back in the sacrum area, so you're not, okay. So and Nina is the closest in this, and of course Deb knows where it is. And Stephanie, you were on top of the pelvic crest. You're right. That's all right. I've taught many doctors, physicians, they don't know where their own hip joints are. They think they are on top of their pelvic crest. It's really amazing. So the hip joint, I will show you, is right here. So the greater trochanter is right there, right. And it's in the same level. And you go just a little past the center of your leg to the inside, and there is an indentation there. And that is where the ball and socket joint is. So let's see. That's right, Deb. I didn't see. Stephanie, could you find it? It's really critical that we have it. Nina, I think yours are a little bit closer towards the center of your body. There. Can you feel it? We're using our third finger. Leslie, I think you're right. I can just see the top of your, just looks sort of like. And Marilyn, I think you are, let's see. Marilyn, that looks right. Okay. And Stephanie, let's see. Name is. Okay, just a little bit lower. Stephanie, with your right hand. There. Okay, got it? That's where your ball and socket joint is. So, okay, so now we're going to peek it again. This time with the ball rotating in the joint. And how we're going to do this? Get this way. So we're going to. We're going to. We've located it. We know how to peek it. We're going to locate it. You're going to be working with, with your right leg. You're going to be finding that one, and I'm going to be mirroring you. So you're going to take your third finger from your left hand, and you're going to place it over that ball area, and then you're going to take it with the right hand and find that greater trochanter where you had. Okay, all right. Okay, and now you're going to weight shift to the left side, and then you're going to image that peaking, and you're going to pick up the front of your foot, and it's going to rotate in and out like that. The leg is straight as this ball and socket rotates. Okay. Now we can't move, we're not moving the pelvis at all. We're just moving the leg in the joint. Leslie, can you weight shift a little bit more to the left? So you don't have any weight on this leg. It's your working leg, support leg. You have to have it. And Marilyn, you can move a little bit to your left. Weight shift. See how far I am? There we are. Now it will be free to really rotate. And Joan, you can weight shift a little bit more too. Good. All right, great. That's wonderful, Nina. And of course, right. Okay. All right, so now let's do it on the other one. So we're going to weight shift over onto the right side. We're going to take the third finger of your right hand, and we're going to place it over, lighting that ball, and then the greater trochanter, another bony landmark, right? Okay. Everybody had it? Weight shift way over to the right, and now you're going to go back, and you're going to pick up the front of your left foot. You're going to pivot on the heel, so the toe points in, points out. And the only way that can really happen is through the imaging of the rotating in, out, and in, and out, and in, and out, and in, and out. No, there's no turning in the pelvis. Only the hip, the leg is turning, the ball is turning in the socket. Right. Okay. All right. So, can you feel a little bit different? Don't sit down yet. We're all not done. So, what's that feel like? Do they feel a little bit more release? Okay. All right. Okay. So now we want to be able to weight shift from side to side. Again, we're using an image here. But this ball is why it's funny like that. But anyway, the ball is rotating from side to side, and like this way, because we're driving a car, and so we're going to be weight shifting here and here, and the top of your body doesn't move. Your hip joints move from side to side, and you have to right. If you want to put your fingers on them so you can feel them moving from side to side, seeing that image like driving the car. And the more that you can weight shift from side to side, it releases that iliopsoas muscle. It's in spasm most of the time. And it's probably easy to go further on one side than it is on the other side. And the reason that is we have a leg that we support most of the time, just like we have a dominant hand we use to write with, we have a dominant leg we support with. And what happens is that whole hip gets tighter, and it impacts both hip joints when the center of gravity is not in the center of your body, or moving from that is the point of reference. All right, okay. So do they feel a little bit more released? Now this weight shifting is critical to walking. So now you can just pick your foot up an inch. I'm weight shifted onto my support leg. You pick up your working leg and move it an inch forward, and then weight shift up a little bit more over to the other side onto the support leg. Pick up the other leg, the working leg, bring it 2 inches forward and move it forward. And so we're moving the hip joints here. So walking is not about moving the legs. It's about weight shifting. And when we don't weight shift, we have a problem even articulating the joints. I'm going backwards too. So these are wonderful movements. So Nina, I'm not saying you move your hips, you're moving your whole body. I want you to move it out there. There you are. Right. That's right. Right. Now step on it way out there and move the other foot forward 2 inches. Right. That's right. And then move backwards. Right. And this is what releases the spine. I'm using these balls. You can see how my joints are really rotating. How are you doing, Stephanie? I'm not seeing a lot of moving. Are you okay? Okay. Do they feel different? Okay. All right. So you can sit down now. Great. All right. Okay. So we have the head and we have the 2 hips, and that makes a head hips triangle. And then we can use that as a platform from going from sitting to standing that I just showed you a minute ago. And if you want to try that, right, makes it right. So easy now that you have your hip joints. Right, right, right. Good. The head just kind of releases as it goes. Right, right. You're following the lightness of the head. Just picks it up. Excellent, Joan. Great. Super. All right. All right. So this is about this is what Actionomics, at least this application of Actionomics is about, because I noticed this culture doesn't move their joints. And the joints are really, really important. If you take all of the soft tissues and everything away from the skeleton, what you are left with are fulcrums and levers, your joints, and your bones. That's all you have. So it's so critical to know how this very fundamental part of our body moves. So that's why this is kind of the moving instrument. I call it a moving instrument. And you could see when you start to use the images and such, you can see how I'm using joints. It's a moving instrument, and this is what I read somebody how they're moving. I see all of their joints, and of course, as a movement analyst, there are particular patterns that I am looking for to help my clients understand. Ones that just because if you're not using your joints, you're not necessarily so engaged with them. So, what I am hoping this takeaway was all about is that you now see the body. It's not a machine. We have a biomechanical way of analyzing, but the body, it's a moving instrument. A machine is an inanimate, but we are animate and we're alive, and when those joints move, and we engage with gravity, it's a very different world. And the body also does not like being pushed around. And when you start using muscles to get them really tight on one side, oh, you got to get strong. Oh, I'm going to strengthen this one, and then I'll strengthen. What happens is when you don't have that joint, that agonist and that beautiful antagonist rhythm that moves these levers freely and releases the joint, it's not there. And that you need that beautiful antagonist and agonist to take you into the leveraging of your body. That's how it is designed to move. So we move on gravity, light. We don't want to compress. The body wants to be free. It is screaming to be free. When it's in pain, it's not free. Everything is too tight. So we free it, and we use Actionomics with this very special mind and body conversation to teach you how to free your joints so that your body can move with a way that's freedom using movement, freedom through movement. And that's what Actionomics does, and how it addresses this chronic issue 63%. I mean, it's dancers that maybe worse statistics it's just really tragic what is happening with such a high rate of injury. And if you begin to look at movement, we have solutions to easily release. And it's fun, even though I ask you to do some silly things. So, if you have any questions, I love questions, I love feedback, I love whatever. It's been fun. As you can see, I'm in my element. I love to share. I love helping people. I have clients from all over the world that I work with, and we have fun all the time because the muscles get contracted from not just using, they get contracted from emotional memories, and we begin to release them that way too. So they take a load off the yoke off their shoulders when we release, and they just feel so much better. Oh, I see hands up. Great. All right. The first one I saw up was Marilyn. So fire away.
Okay. So this is true. I'm going to need your help with this. I have a friend, actually my boyfriend, who has been suffering terribly when he gets up in the morning, just raising his arms over his head. We've been doing, well, he was actually diagnosed with an autoimmune thing going on, but I have him going up the wall slowly, but we do some other exercises first to kind of warm up those muscles. And he is progressing, but I wondered if there's anything better to release his shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I do.
Yeah, he's had Lyme's disease. He's allergic to bites. So he's had some in the past year, I think twice been bitten. And so there is I can't remember what it is, but it's an autoimmune thing that's going on, and it does attack the joints and mimics arthritis. Mm-hmm. So I just wondered if there was anything else I could pass on to him.
Well, I didn't show you and work with the ball and socket shoulder joint, and
no,
I have a very strategic way to do that. Maybe we could have a session to do that, and then just go instead of even the muscles will take their information from the joints. So when we go right to the joint and it's teach to release that, we can do that. And I know he's not here all the time. We can do a 3-way Zoom or something. I certainly would love to help him with that. And yes, I have worked with Lyme patients. But if you can take bring the joint to life itself, and then make it larger than life by peeking with the image, to the encapsulating tissues around it will begin to release, so he'll have more space, and then that arthritic response will not be quite as and actually get circulation in it. And when you have too much rubbing here, the body says, "Oh, it's hot. I got to cool it down," and calls for fluids. In the fluid is a lot of calcium, and that's when you get the arthritis. It gets deposited in. So if we can reduce the friction, then it will happen. I mean, he should be able to move his arm like that. Right. I had somebody that had an absolutely torn rotator cuff that it wasn't even operable, and they couldn't get their arm up, but he could do that. So it's powerful joints, because we're bypassing the trauma in the muscles. Don't have to deal with that. If you're thinking about the muscles, you already have trauma, you re-invite that muscle response and the trauma, and you load it even more because there's pain associated with it.
I'll give him your email address. Right now his dad's in the hospital. This is not a good time. But I'm going to send that on to him, so when things are a little quieter, he can focus on himself.
Okay. And so just let him know there is a solution.
Yeah, that's good to know.
And it's great that he's up there trying, because lots of people just give up. So you're an inspiration to him, I'm sure.
I'm not sure about that, but you're sweet.
Okay. All right, Deb, fire away.
So I wanted you to share 2 things. I want you to share, if you wouldn't mind, the story about your husband falling off the ladder and that rehabilitation, because I think that's so powerful.
Mhm.
And then I want you also to share your new role at the Integrative Medicine Society.
Okay. All right. Be delighted to. Okay. So my late husband was loved to race. He was a sailor, he had a big boat, had had a depth of like 7 feet. I mean, that's long. I mean, it's huge. Anyway, we were in a hurricane over in the East Coast and sustained quite a bit of damage. So the boat was in the boatyard waiting to be assessed by the insurance company. For somebody who loves the boat, he's looking at the boat and he said, that bottom needs to be newly painted so when I get back there, I can win more races. So he puts together a jury rigs a scaffolding to stand on. So he's up there sanding, because you have to prep. So he's standing and says, oh, I got to get over there. And it was beyond the capacity of that scaffolding to support him. He fell on his hip and the ball went through the socket in his hip joint and had 7 fractures. And they get him to the hospital. I'm not here. I'm up in New Hampshire, out of town for a couple of days. Anyway, they get him to the hospital and they tell him he's never going to walk. He's never going to drive a car or stick shift. He's never, I mean, they just load him up with all this never he's going to be able to do. So is it, and they thought, well, maybe they'd do surgery. And so when I heard all of this, I said, I'm coming home before you do any surgery. And I came home and by then we decided no surgery. He didn't need surgery. The fractures were aligned. So he's in the hospital and they order PT for him. They come in and they want him to shrink all of his muscles. And they said, we're going to put him into traction, but we want him to shrink all these muscles. And I'm, that's crazy. Anyway, he comes home. And so my husband was a big, strong man, you know, and I'm this little PT thing. He was listening to me, but we come home and he's dependent on me now. If he wants breakfast and dinner, he's doing what I'm asking him to do. So he has his leg in this in traction. And I said, now I'm just going to, if you want dinner, I am just going to rotate this ball in the socket, just really, really gently, just like that. And it didn't hurt him at all because he had more space in that. And I kept doing this. And so anyway, went back to see the doctor 6 weeks later, and the doctor took an x-ray and was absolutely flabbergasted. He had never, ever seen anybody have a complete healing of the ball and socket hip joint over 20 years of age, because that ball and socket joint it doesn't become fully calcified, get all boned until you're 20. So he had never seen it. And it wasn't totally healed, but it was on the way to be perfectly healed. And the reason why I wanted him to do this, why I did that passively, I didn't want to have any muscles in it, I wanted to do it passively, is that I wanted the tissues that were being, the scar tissue or the new tissues that were coming in, to learn what the conformation was of those tissues for that joint. So they would fit into that joint and it would smoothly be able to articulate the way it was designed to move. And we asked the doctor if he wanted to learn what we had done, and he didn't want to know. And my husband was an amazing clinical nutritionist. He was one of the pioneers in the 60s and 70s. And the reason we were able to have supplements, they went through an awful lot challenging that. But anyway, so we knew about what supplements to take. And so we loaded the tissues up with the nutrients that they needed to have. But they wouldn't have known what to do without the movement, the body teaching it for the tissues to get the sense of how to move. So that's what I did for my husband. So anyway, so thank you. That was fun. And the other thing, yes, I'm at the clinic now. I'm augmenting my whatever at the clinic. They have invited me to become the patient advocate at the Florida Integrated Medical Center, which is kind of fun. And because I've been in the holistic healthcare world for a long time, so I'm quite familiar with all the treatments and all of that, how they go together. And so I have a program. It's called Mornings with Mona, and it's 3 days a week from 9 to 12, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I haven't started quite yet. It seems to have problems on the other end, but we will get it down. So I will be all over that clinic working with the clients, the patients when they come in. So many of them come in and they are in stage 4 of whatever health issue they come in. And they come into the clinic as a last resort. And they are terrified. Their mindset is in a state of desperation. You do not heal when your body is in fear. So in the process, I will invite them and help them to understand what their programs are and for them, and then we work with images and all the crazy mind-body engagement. I will have them working at the in the IV room. You're not just having a treatment happening to you, but you become a participant in it, in how you're moving your ankles and your feet, and you're lying there getting the IVs and breathing to really inspire the sense of health and vitality and life. Because what happens, as I said, when you have such a dire consequence, you go into the state of fear, and the body doesn't even, and in some ways isn't even they aren't even receptive to this new, because it can't feel it because of fear. So we just open that all up. So that's what I'll be doing. And the patients have questions, and if I can't answer the question, I know the person to go to, but to actually integrate them into this integrative program. It's so different because conventional medicine has your passive, and it happens to you. In a holistic medicine, it's different. You become a participant, and you're active, and you become, as you're a participant, you move and you motivate that healing process, and you get a much better outcome because we have fabulous, fabulous treatments.
Mona, is that Dr. Mulholland on University Parkway, this clinic?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
It's also where I'm a practitioner. So,
So I think you need to write something up for the newsletter.
Oh, about the Mornings with Mona? Okay.
Why not?
Would love
Sure.
to. Okay. All right.
Sure.
So,
Anybody else have any other questions for Mona before we wrap up?
Nina does.
Nina?
All right. Nina?
Yeah, so talking about torn rotator cuff, I've had that, and playing a lot of tennis, that's obviously not great for the shoulder. Any recommendation? Is it just good to take the joint through a range of motion on a regular basis? Would you recommend that? Is there a particular kind of rotation you recommend? Or?
So yes, there is. And I would need to teach you how to do that. That's right. I didn't know how fast we would go today, but I need to teach you how to. Yes, there is a very specific rotation, and that's the thing when the body is so geometrically designed in terms of how the ligaments and the tendons all feed in. So you have to respect that, whether you're rotating outward or inward. And that's what happens. You get the injury when you're moving it out of its natural range because you're not really understand that. So they're very specific references to how to do that.
Do you meet with your patients via Zoom or in person?
Yeah, I do.
You do
Yep.
both?
I do. Yep.
So
It's way better in person.
it's in person. It's better. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And So basically, what I get the takeaway from your discussion on the hip joint is when you walk, you really want to sway the hips right and left. Am I correct in that?
Right,
So kind of have like a sexy walk, if you, in a way,
right.
Runway walk, yeah.
runway walk.
So it's really the whole idea is if you could see in your mind the ball bearings of your hip joints moving and driving it. And then that really gets in to that iliopsoas muscle and gets that iliopsoas strengthened.
Yes.
Because right. Yes, it is. And then there are, of course, if we work on the ball and socket shoulder joints, there's contralateral. So you have all these ball and socket joints having a conversation with them, because you see if I'm moving around, they're all moving, and they keep trying to lift up.
And lastly, I want to commend you on your cute outfit. I thought at first that's a pretty shirt, and then when you got up, I saw it's a kind of a suit with all the indicators on it. I love it. That's great.
Thank you. It's actually a patented, because there's a whole training that goes along how to use it. And so Actionomics is a lot more than just this. It basically is a language, and it depicts the 3 different learning styles of whether you're a visual learner, auditory, or tactile learner, and how the mind and bodies engage with all of that. And just to give you an example, like I was a ballet dancer, and when you look at ballet dancing, you'll see that we make a lot of geometric designs, and with the legs, they're moving up and out. You could see the body. They use angles and they use curvilinear patterns and such. But anyway, and in order to be able to do that, you have to know where the joints are to be. And so we have the mind seeing the form that we're doing in terms of ballet. I think whether this is like a curvilinear line, and I can change that, but I'm changing it all according to the joints, and I'm using my ball and socket shoulder joint as much. And so, but then in order to be able to have some accuracy about it, I have to know exactly where my joints are, so that when you see an amazing dancer, you're drawn to them because they're able to perform these geometric design patterns with a high degree of articulate efficacy of their joints, so that your brain and your body are, in order to have that conversation, see that happening. So that is visual design, which is a visual element. So that's just one of them. And ballet dancing happens to live in that. Sports live in a kinespheric shape, 3-dimensional volume. And then we have the kinetic for me, which is the muscles, the sound and the rhythm and the buoyancy and everything. All of them have different mind and body's engagements to be performing the body part sequencing that is optimal for peak performance. But today we learned just how to peak the ball and socket joints for your head and your hips joints, so you could more easily go from sitting to standing and moving and walking and releasing your joints, because they need to be moving and releasing and articulating to carry the fun going for 120 years, because that's how long we're supposed to live.
Well, Mona, this has been absolutely terrific. I want to thank you. I think everybody really, really appreciated it. I'm sorry that more people haven't taken advantage of it. So I suggest you send out emails and tell people to watch this. It'll be up on our website.
Okay.
And,
All right.
it's wonderful, wonderful. So I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you. I think everybody really appreciates it.
Thank you.
Just to let you all know, next month, a former Coaches Alliance member, Gail Kondrick, will be our guest. I don't know if she's going to be talking about her archetypes material or not. We're working on the topic now, but it's going to be really interesting. So for a change, I do know who the guest for next month is for February. So I wish you all a wonderful rest of January.